Juventus 2, Manchester City 0. I mean, it was, like when they crush like a Prince Rupert's drop. Like a Prince Rupert's drop. It's like a piece of glass that it's hot molten glass that they drop in water, and the bulbous end is the hardest thing known to humanity. You cannot smash the end of a Prince Rupert's drop, but you can snap the tiny little leg of the Prince Rupert's drop, and the whole thing just explodes. Are you familiar with this phenomena?
No. Well, I think you're just saying what we're all thinking.
Jim, have you ever heard of that?
Nope.
All right. Well, you will have seen it. You will have seen people crushing it with pneumatic presses online. It's incredibly tough material.
Our online habits are very different.
I know, Jim.
The explanation is excellent, though, and I do understand what you mean.
Jim's algorithm is just tits and steak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just watching those retreats where men go to Thailand to just hang out with each other and talk about their investments.
Exactly.
No alcohol allowed.
Dads with swords is probably our crossover pick.
Pretty much. I mean,
well, how does this relate to Man City then, Peter? What's the analogy? Is it going somewhere?
People for about 4 seasons have sort of been experiencing this as the Orby end, the toughest to break down, the most impossible to beat. But now people are just sort of following the end of the Prince Rupert's drop and going, oh, this bit's very small and tender and crack, explode, and then Man City just explode, and they can't seem to get a result.
Scratched face.
Exactly, and that's why his face got scratched. The Prince Rupert's drop. Sit in deep, give them no space at all, then just lamp them up and beat them for pace. It is the Man City blueprint that every team is enjoying this season, and I don't know why Pep Guardiola hasn't figured this out, Lucky Mo.
Yeah, I've got nothing against them, really, but it's good, isn't it? It is good. Like the same way it's good when Man United melt down, and we've been enjoying that for a while now. Liverpool melt down sometimes, it's great. Chelsea's meltdown was brilliant. There's for me as an outsider looking into all these big teams, it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. It's almost like an obscure World War I battle that I'll watch an 8-part Netflix series about and be really into it, like a proper weird dad. It's like that. And I, for one, am enjoying it.
With a pint of Doom Bar.
Exactly.
The dad drink of legend.
The first Juventus goal last night that was just over the line, and it was a bit unclear, and then the goal line technology confirmed it. Was even that's against them. Even that's working against them. So it was fascinating. I think they look really lethargic and passive and shorn of confidence, which is really interesting because the problems maybe we've seen in the past at key moments for Man City under Guardiola, and they've gone pretty much the whole way and sorting even those out, were just these kind of overcomplicated fiddly bits that Guardiola would get stuck into that would cost them a cup final or whatever. Yeah. Now, it seems to be that I was watching them I watched the game last night, and they had chances and everything, and there was a really good save from the goalkeeper against from Erling Haaland save, which is a brilliant textbook Man City move. Ball comes to De Bruyne, plays a perfect inch pass, weighted ball through, and it's saved. And you thought, okay, it feels almost like a team doing an impression of a Man City team, like they're going through the motions without the conviction of it.
It's a bloke from the Jersey Boys getting pushed on stage and just comes out and miming.
It is actually. It is. It is. Adam Jarrell from The Offensive and from lots of other shows. He actually does Sherlock and Co now for Goal Hanger. He was one of the Jersey Boys.
Okay.
At in the West End, and then now he's touring it. I should have got him on the show today and said, "How different are you to the actual Frankie Valli?" Because that would have helped us. But Jim, I don't know if you feel the same, but to me, it feels very, very much like this is what we should be doing, but we're not doing it with any real confidence. And it'll be fascinating to see if Guardiola can do that, because it feels to me that this is the first time he's had to do this as a coach.
Yeah, but I think what's going wrong is it's almost the opposite problem as from what you were describing before, where they were overly intricate. It's the simple things that aren't really connecting, and they're not doing particularly well. I know this is an extreme example, obviously, but it's kind of an illustrative one. The point where Kyle Walker just puts the ball out rather than being able to make a simple pass to Kevin De Bruyne. Now, as I say, that's obviously an extreme example of it, but it is the little things like that kind of have made that sense of dominance and inevitability about them kind of slip away a little bit. Teams know that actually you can pounce on their mistakes now. They didn't really seem to ever make them before. They were machine-like, and it's interesting to see City go through a period like this, isn't it? You spoke earlier about how much fun it is to see one of the big boys, having these types of meltdown, and it is. We all enjoy that because football is kind of snarky like that, and also it's just interesting to see these big institutions in crisis. But I think there was always a feeling with City that they had kind of cracked some sort of algorithm, particularly with Guardiola, that meant that would never happen, that it would be 2 or 3 games at the most, and that the squad is kind of like future-proofed, and that the way they play is future-proofed. There is simply no way that this kind of almost mortality will creep back into what they do. So I think it's come as a big surprise to me, really. I suppose when you look around at the age profile of the squad, I think part of what's happening is there's been a dip in quality of a few players at the same time. But it was hard to predict that happening because of how good they've been and how successful they've been recently. Obviously, the injuries haven't helped. Yeah, and the injuries, the injuries are a massive, massive factor in it. Everyone gets them, etc. But, only the club with the injuries that they're dealing with have to deal with them. But yeah, it is a really fascinating thing to see. And also, it's not surprising that Juventus have won this game, is it, really? It's the first time in a long time.
They've not been in amazing form, though, have they?
No, but they're a good team. They're a big team. They understand their role in at the top table of football in the Champions League. I mean, Pete, would you prefer, from me next, would you prefer a tinfoil hat theory, or would you prefer me to take the piss out of Jim a bit?
It depends on what is it going to be? I don't know. Jim's got everything going for him. I'm worried that you might.
I think that's why he needs to be taken down.
Yeah,
a peg
maybe
you might take the nick out of his spectacles, and I'm wearing.
I would never do that.
I worry that might sort of ricochet off him and hit me.
Today.
Yeah,
get some specs, mate.
8 eyes to 2, mate.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
I've got 8 eyes against me. I was just going to say, this is going to be a little throwaway comment. It might work, might not. Let's give it a go. Right. I was just going to say, when Jim talks about it being enjoyable, I was like, yeah, because Arsenal fans have seen Arsenal try really hard, be really improved, and the last 2 seasons they've had to watch Man City win the league, and this season they've tried really hard, done the best they can, and they're going to probably, it's a nice change for them because they get to watch Liverpool win the league. Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
But nice,
mate. You've got to take the Schadenfreude where you can.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. At least it's like a bit different, isn't it? Yeah. I was the tinfoil hat side of me wonders whether. And it is a big side of me because obviously I am Matt Letizier's nemesis, and you can't really have a proper enemy unless you know that enemy well enough. You must know that enemy as you know yourself. So I spend quite a lot of my time with the tinfoil hat on, wandering around my neighbourhood, challenging people. But you're
the third weirdest man in your street.
It's probably second, actually. Yeah, okay, I definitely know who's the weirdest. Definitely. Jim knows him as well. Anyway, I'm only joking. So basically, can it be? So we are talking about. I'll do it in the form of a question. We are talking about the worst, not just in Man City's time under Guardiola, but Guardiola's managerial, career in general. And it's been like almost catastrophically bad. 1 win in 10. Conceded more goals in all competitions than any other team in Europe's top 5 leagues since the start of November. It's been a catastrophically bad 6 weeks or so, right? Is it real? Is it realistically the case that this is not in some way related to the fact that they might be about to have some really fucking bad news about these charges? I would look. We know how the world works. We know we're going to hear what's going to happen before the official announcement because shit gets leaked and journalists are briefed and all the rest of it. I just wonder whether they are expecting some really bad news and it's become almost existentially disappointing for them and they can't get themselves out of the funk in response.
It wouldn't be surprising, would it? And we've been saying for a while now, it must be a factor. At the very least, having this stuff hanging over the club can't help,
That's probably more likely, isn't it? It's that.
Do you not think that, have we got we haven't got an end date though, have we, when this is all going to be kind of cleared up, no? Will they realistically know right now?
It's going to be fairly soon. It's going to be in the new year.
It's going to be soon, but it will be appealed, won't it? It was essentially whatever happens, the other side will likely appeal the outcome. So it could drag on for a long time. But still, perhaps that's part of the problem.
The point is, as of the start of this week, the news came through that the inquiry has concluded.
Right.
It's concluded.
Right.
But it hasn't been announced yet.
Okay, so I mean, we're in a situation where, but this poor run of form started a very, very long time ago. Is this not just a little bit of with these things having a hold of Manchester City a little bit, and the fact that, and probably due to that, they haven't really strengthened with the same vigor that other teams have. You get the sense with the last generation, Pep Guardiola knew to get rid of certain players and knew. And now they're in a situation where players can't really flourish in that kind of system. The squad looks old, it looks slow. The fullbacks don't seem to be able to sort of do that quick up and down. And Doku, and Doku, if you stifle Doku, they haven't really got much of an outlet.
But I would say Doku. I mean, even in the game last night, Doku still looked sharp, right?
Yeah.
And
he was well. He had a lot of man on him, man meat.
But Pete, I have seen that talked about a lot. And I've seen it talked about in a way that feels to me like press and people want to, find a reason for something because they've got to write about it. And I just don't necessarily see that being the case by watching them. Because if you look at the players they've lost this summer, Julian Alvarez, fine, he played a lot, he was important. They lost him for quite a lot of money. João Cancelo had been gone anyway. I mean, he just confirmed that he was going. Taylor Harwood-Bellis never played. Calvin Phillips never played. Tommy Doyle, who they also lost, never played. I can't think of anyone else that they've lost of any impact whatsoever in terms of transfers out. But certain key players are either missing through injury or are just not at the level. Yeah. Kyle Walker's not been at the level. John Stones has been missing. Rodri's the massive one that's been going to be out for a while. And
Phil Foden as well.
Foden as well. I was thinking about Foden this morning. Yeah, that's part of it as well. So, but it looks to me, the problem is though, Pete, you can say that, but I don't think it's a reasonable argument to say because of those things I've said there, they couldn't have enough to get past Crystal Palace or, who else have they?
They're 22nd in the home. They're 22nd in the Champions League table with 2 games remaining. They've got PSG on the horizon and Club Brugge, which is... I mean, one of those teams will be really, really up for the cup, and the other one you'd probably imagine they could get through, but they're 22nd. That's just not good
exactly.
enough.
And the key stat, and Jim, if you've seen this, but the key stat is the amount of chances they're now conceding. If you see that in an infographic, it is absolutely stark. It's like a massive skyscraper per game compared to what it was last year before. So that to me is a lack of intensity.
But there is a lack of intensity, but is that just not personnel getting a bit older and injuries? But on the other side, I think, Jim, you spoke about they're making more mistakes. I don't think they're making more mistakes. I just think they have the temerity to lose the ball in the final third, and their fullbacks can't keep up with whatever the other team has got to throw at them.
Yeah, I guess that swarm isn't there, is it? That's kind of what I mean, though, is that sort of drop off in intensity, those lack of kind of recovery runs or the slightly misplaced pass. I'm not talking about howlers. I'm just talking about the very very basic things that they do so well. You forget it's even possible to make a mistake. I think the starkest thing with the Champions League as well, if just slightly going back to that, is that obviously they've got those 2 games left to play, and the PSG game is a massive game because they themselves are in 25th. They're at home and they need a win, so that's going to be a really interesting game. But there's 2 games to go, and City are 5 points off of the current top 8, which is obviously going to shuffle around a lot as we've seen because of this format. So they are really, really up against it in terms of getting into the kind of automatic places.
Jamie Carragher said last night that he doesn't think Man City will be in the Champions League next season.
Wow. That seems alarmist, but the longer this kind of period goes on, the more it's reasonable to be alarmed, I suppose.
I still think they'll pick it up once they get their walking wounded, less wounded and more walking. I mean, there was a massive play to be had on social media yesterday regarding the training session that Man City live streamed. Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Gundogan and Haaland all missed successive penalties. There was no goalkeeper in the net. They say they were aiming for the woodwork, and I happen to believe them. It was obvious that they were aiming for the but it was a big
pointless
it's not what you want to see. It's not what you want to see. If you're a Juve team looking at what they're doing, so going, well, I mean, we'll probably win this because they just appear to be pissing about. They appear to be. Yeah. They've brought their toys in. It's the last day of school before Christmas, and they're just pissing about.
But isn't that what you want them to be doing, though? Like you don't want them. I mean, it's not completely ridiculous that they're just trying to lighten the load and have a bit of fun as well. I think most teams do.
I like it, but I'm not Pep Guardiola.
I
as
know
discussed.
I know you're not.
I'd probably be better prepared. They are waning in the Champions League, and I don't agree with Jamie Carragher. I think they probably will make Champions League. They'll sneak in there somehow. But Jose Mourinho says that he does not want Man City to be relegated. He says that he likes justice. I suffered when I was at Roma regarding fair play, financial fair play. He said, I don't think it's fair that the big jugs always find a way to escape the rules. Big jugs! It's not fair that the big jugs always find a way to escape the rules. I've said that at a bar before when I'm not getting served. Unbelievable.
He's on a roll, isn't he, at the moment? Mourinho.
He's very truth social. He's entering his truth social kind of...
He's
becoming populist for sure.
If his autobiography isn't Little Horses and Big Jugs, I'll be very, very disappointed. And people have got the temerity, and I agree with Marcus, who was saying this the other day, people have got the temerity to say they don't think it's a good idea that Mourinho comes back to England. It's obviously a good idea. He should be coming back to England all the time. Until he dies, he should be back.
Well, he may yet. So just be careful what you wish for, is all I'm saying. It gets boring.
Big Jugs. Do you reckon that's a kind of slight translation error in switching between the 4 million different languages he can speak, or do you think he just thought, no, I'm gonna say it like that?
Big jugs of money. I don't know. It's very confusing. I don't know. But his style of managerial sort of elegance, I would say, is rubbing off on his team. Sophie and I avoided a red card last night for throttling a man in their loss against Atletico.
Yeah, in his defence, he did think it was Erik ten Hag.
It was an opposition player, right? It wasn't just a man.
No, it wasn't, and it was a cameraman.
Someone he had to teach a lesson.
Get my best
People
angle,
look at it and go,
please.
well, to be fair, the man shouldn't even really be on the pitch.
No, there's
no reason to be here.
Yeah. Jose's obviously, of course, it's nearly Christmas time and managers are losing their jobs. Form is dropping off as we head into a really busy festive period. And he's linking himself with the Real Madrid job. He says they have the best coach in the world, my friend Carlo. He's doing very well. The future depends on what the president wants. If he wants a young coach with a big projection as Xabi Alonso or continue in the same line as Carlo, a coach with experience, it depends. Mate, you need to shut up. You just lost 2-0 in the Europa, for crying out loud. It's good. It's good stuff, Jim, but I just feel like he's doing it at the wrong time. He do it at the end of the season.
No, come on. As much as I am very aware that it gets very tedious quickly if it's happening in your domestic league, I'm all for him linking himself to the Real Madrid job. Now, the Real Madrid job, I know he's done it before, but the world has changed, and I love that he refuses to.
I like that he... So I was talking about this to a friend the other day, saying that how could we feasibly make an argument for Mourinho after his career and the stage of his career he's in now to be back in the Premier League at a big job. And he always seems to find a way to kind of PR himself. Yeah. And clearly the way he'll PR himself this time is he'll say, yeah, but at Man United, I should have won the league. But I didn't because they cheated. And so
he's already done that, hasn't he, essentially?
Exactly. But he's laying the groundwork for that. And then I was thinking, because he could probably, if he banged that drum enough and charmed everyone, and his agent did the usual, I could see him at West Ham, for example, or Newcastle. Newcastle's a massive bit of him, right? It's incredibly reassuring for the theory that he is still thinking, no, I'll beat Real Madrid. Don't worry about that.
Aim for the stars and aim for Real Madrid.
What level do you think you're at now, Jose, in your career? Real Madrid.
Well, maybe he's got that mentality.
He'll be saying that when he's 90.
Yeah,
true. Completely agree. Well, coming up, Arsenal march on, and we've found potentially the strangest celebration of the season. It involves a tree.
You just mentioned the low block. When they hardly allow you to enter the box, what's the solution?
Kill someone.
Arsenal 3, Monaco 0 in the Champions League. Gabriel Jesus at the moment. He is going through some... What's the opposite of a purple patch, guys? What colour is that? Yellow? Piss yellow? I don't know.
A piss yellow patch.
That feels
piss yellow
appropriate.
patch, yeah. Yellow snow patch, He had a couple of decent chances yesterday, and I'm a big fan of Gabriel Jesus, and I still think he's got a bit in his locker. But I think I think the first chance that he had 1-on-1, he sort of swung at it with his toe, which really does show a player who was not necessarily on form and low in confidence. Jim.
Well, you know what? Actually, I quite liked that chance, despite the fact that he didn't manage to finish it. It wasn't particularly clinical, but it did. He only had kind of a split second to react within it. it because it was sort of the opposite of what happened in the game against Fulham the other day, where there was a chance that came over and he kind of pulled out of going for it. He was a bit braver with it this time, and he didn't finish it, but he got the assist for Bukayo Saka shortly after that. He had another chance that, again, he might have done better with, but, you know, he looked a little bit more like himself. He tired in the second half. He's kind of like, you know, ploughing those furrows and being busy and being a little bit more tenacious. So if he is going to get back on top of his game, that's what he needs to do. He needs to get himself in these positions, and he needs to essentially be having chances at all. So it's, you know, it still wasn't amazing, but it's kind of, I personally hope, and I'm certainly putting a kind of positive hat on to look at this, that it's a step in the right direction. But the problem is with Jesus, he's on massive money. He's on it's something like 250 grand a week, and he's not making the contribution of a player that kind of sits in your squad on that level. So we'll see if he really has much of a future at Arsenal. I think the second half of the season will be him really playing for that. Generally, I thought Arsenal were actually really sloppy yesterday. They won 3-0, but a lot of that was because Monaco kind of gifted them a second goal and then kind of fell apart. Similarly to the City game, actually, there were a lot of sloppy passes, and it was the whole team as well. David Raya made a couple of uncharacteristically bad kicks that put pressure on people. Like, throughout the team, there were sloppy passes and things not quite clicking. And it sounds weird to say it, but the atmosphere was kind of flat as well. But then, obviously, it is a really positive result, particularly because winning by 3 goals. Goal difference is really important in this format, isn't it? It's put Arsenal up to third, and it's going to be the case probably all the way until the end of it, because there are so many teams on the same points like throughout the table. So that's a really sort of interesting element of it. So yeah, it was a strange game, but I'll take a 3-0 win when you don't play particularly well.
Jim, I think what's interesting though is to juxtapose that against Man City and what we talked about earlier, because, you know, Arsenal, for example, have got so many defensive players out. They still, even and they can have an off night, which is what it looked like to me as well. And obviously, I wasn't at the game like you, but I saw large parts of it. Yet they still can play with that intensity, and they all know their jobs, and they've got that system, and you know, they're also able to occasionally say, just give the ball to Bukayo because he's so good, and he will do something, or and even the fortunate second goal he gets, it's because he's being tenacious. It's because he's right in there. It's because he's right on his toes all the time and plays with such intensity.
As is the third, really, too.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, that was fortunate as well. But you know, Ben White, Takahiro Tomiyasu, Alexander Zinchenko, Gabriel, Ricardo Calafiore, they're all out. You've got Thomas Partey playing right back. You've got Miles Lewis-Skelly coming in at left back, who's an inexperienced but really exciting young player, and they still managed to get it done. Yeah. That
not
just
conceded
shows
a goal in the Champions League at home this season yet either.
Exactly right. And listen, it's not that long ago that we were sitting here talking about the size of job Mikel Arteta had to get the club into a position where they were confident, where they were, you know, not just flogging new fashion lines every 5 minutes, but actually playing like a top-level club. And regardless of what happens
before the start of the match,
exactly, that's what made me think of it. They're still doing that, but at the same time, they're also.
Are they like basketball or baseball jackets?
Baseball jackets. I mean, baseball jackets,
I wasn't against them, but it's just the whole corporate.
Listen, Pete,
the weight of corporate kind of style.
I'd love to see Jim walk into the office wearing one of them, chewing some gum.
His hands oily from his hog. I don't know.
Pair of ripped jeans on.
Yeah, a basketball.
Do you know what I'd say? If he walked in dressed like that, I'd say, keep talking, whoa, keep talking. That's what I'd do.
So, sorry, in this scenario, I've walked into the studio in the morning. I'm wearing an Arsenal-branded baseball jacket. And my hands are oily because of something to do with a hog. Can you elaborate on that
your
bit?
Motorbike. Your
motorbike.
motorbike.
I see. I thought you meant a literal
pig.
That's
what the gang call a motorbike, mate. A hog.
Hog what?
I honestly thought that you meant I'd just been shoveling bacon into my face, like without any.
Well, I mean, that's very American too.
Marcus isn't there in this tonight. You can be there if you want.
Yeah.
Pancake and syrup and bacon, yeah, absolutely fine. Jim, did you think that Saka's first was very Raheem Shaquille Sterling? Just the effect of that man coming up at the back post. That's just what Raheem Sterling does. He's teaching.
Mate, you're right. Actually, it was a very Sterling-y finish. Perhaps there is a bit of influence there, but he's very good at arriving at that point. Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm too glum about a 3-0 win. There were just certainly moments in it. It was like it felt a little less slick than it has before. before. But, Arsenal have had patchy form lately, and you have to win games while you're getting up to top speed, and that's exactly what they did, and they did it well.
I think both teams saw this as a way to kind of arrest a bit of a slide, but no, didn't happen for Monaco, and you could kind of tell from the body language of the celebrations. They would say that it felt a bit FA Cup, like third round kind of lower league kind of win. People were like, ooh. But I tell you what, they were distinctly underwhelming, the celebrations. But Rochdale's Toby Adebayo Rowling, he celebrated his goal against Leamington in the FA Trophy this week by running the length of the pitch, jumping over the advertising hoardings and out the back of a stand, and then he just hugged a tree. And if that name Adebayo seems familiar, actually the nephew of our very own Dotun Adebayo. Have we got a line on the young man, Lukey?
No, I think because Dotun works nights, and so
rather unwelcome. A little phone call at 3 a.m. Hello, mate.
Sorry, Dotun. That OTC show you do, which is already incredibly inconvenient for you and way beneath your level. Can you just give us another line for nothing? Just for nothing. It doesn't actually hug a tree, does he? He just kind of. I do not want to besmirch the good reputation of the Adebayo family in any way,
right?
Because they're a lovely family, but it looked to me like he got carried away, ran the length of the pitch. Jumped over the thing to kind of show off to someone. There was no one there, and he kind of did an arms outstretched Jude Bellingham to the tree rather than hug the tree from what I saw, but the angle wasn't that helpful, and it was very poorly lit, so I could be wrong on that.
I imagine if there's a bit of Dottenham in him, he probably told that tree a little story about, I don't know,
entertained
about
the tree.
A rapper from the 80s or something. Hey, speaking of inspirational messages, Monaco's training facilities recently had a €55 million upgrade, and they've only written something on the wall. It's not a rude daubing. It's not a painting of a free kick trainer. It is rise, risk, repeat on the wall in the gym, which is, as inspirational messages go, we should start doing that at Ramble HQ. Start writing that's what football do to you. All of our classic catchphrases, get it on the wall.
That.
Yeah, why not?
I think so. When I saw, I did hear rise, risk, repeat, and I heard it on the telly. One of the commentators talking about it, and I didn't hear it properly. I thought it said rise, whisk, repeat. I thought that's great advice for a meringue. Has to be said.
It's not that dissimilar from because from what I remember, I haven't been to your new house, but in your old house, you had just I'm picturing it in my mind now in your living room. Next to all your Gavin and Stacey DVDs, you had Live, Love, Laugh, didn't you? It's not similar.
And bits of driftwood with gin is my favourite soup. It's Prosecco o'clock. All those ones, all those good ones.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. We were on a break.
We were on a break. Lovely, yeah. I can't remember any other friends' lines.
Jim, have you got anything for that? Do you want to read the one that's behind you now?
Well, elsewhere in the Champions League last night...
No, fuck off. You're not moving on.
What?
Strangers are just friends we haven't met yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any more?
I can't think of any more, but I'll come back to it later.
ChatGPT. I imagine ChatGPT would be absolutely amazing for getting inspiration.
The older name inspiration,
yeah. If I was your husband, I'd drink it or something. I don't know. Elsewhere in the Champions League last night...
I love housework. I could watch you do it all day.
It's a good one, Jim. Is that one of your own?
No, that's one from... It's actually from it's on the wall in a cafe not far from our studio. So there's a really boring peek behind a curtain that no one needs.
In here, beer. Over there, bears probably, possibly.
Oh, God, yeah.
Oh, that one, that's a good one, yeah. What about... I've got a good one for you. Hard work never killed anyone, but why take the risk?
Oh God, I laughed. And that was 50% me laughing because I enjoyed it. Sorry about that. Atletico Madrid beat Slovan Bratislava 3-1, and I'm mentioning this only because absolute right up Ramble Straza into Ramble Plaza. It was the first time in Champions League history that there were two dads coaching. Vladimir Weiss and Diego Simeone, and their sons were playing Vladimir Weiss. Where did he come up with that name? And Giuliano Simeone in the same game. Not bad, eh?
Nice.
I like that.
What's not bad about it is that Giuliano Simeone still got a career and indeed his own legs, because when I saw him play against PSG in the Champions League earlier this season, he got nutmegged right in front of his dad.
Oh,
right, okay,
if you want to get nutmegged in front of a dad, probably best that your dad isn't Diego Simeone.
Yeah, he's not just any dad,
very,
is he?
very badly. Also, Vladimir Weiss used to play for Man City, so there's your link.
Oh, there you go. What? Which one? The manager or the son?
I'm going to say the son, and
Okay.
he only played a few
Holy
times.
Right. All right. Well, coming up, great news. FIFA have confirmed the 2034 World Cup is off to. We'll tell you after the break. Welcome back to the Football Ramble. The next 2 World Cups have been awarded. Spain, Portugal and Morocco will be joint hosts for the 2030 World Cup, with 3 matches being held in Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay to mark the competition's centenary edition. What are the people going to do with the graphics for the World Cup for the BBC and the ITV? Usually, when we've got a World Cup in Brazil, in France you get the Arc de Triomphe. What are they going to do for this? There's so many countries involved.
It's going to be all over the shop, isn't it? Quite
Like Eurovision, isn't it?
Yeah,
A flamenco dancer taking spice from Morocco,
No, it's like a Eurovision intro.
which is a legal drug for Portugal.
Is it? Well, Portugal are very, very laissez-faire on that side.
Exactly, they are, yeah.
It's a very interesting. I'm going to say box job, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the 2030, the three, as you said, the 3 matches being held in South America are to do with the fact it's 100 years since the World Cup started. I'm fairly certain that because of FIFA's own rules, they couldn't give it to South America properly, so they had to do it in Europe. Also, people are just stopping bidding because they're so fucking pissed off how corrupt it is that they've actually just botched job it. I'm not worried so much. I mean, Pete, you'll be unsurprised to hear I'm less worried about the TV intro, which I think will be manageable. More worried about what we're going to do when all of a sudden a random game is being played 7 hours behind where the normal games are being played.
Yeah. Think about drinking.
They are. I mean, the one tournament will take place in not just different hemispheres, but different seasons, which is really, really strange.
Wow,
and I do think it's sad that it's not in South America for the centenary, because centenaries are really culturally important in South America. Like, every club makes a big deal of its 100th years and a big anniversaries like that. And I think it's part of the heritage that FIFA govern, and it would be great for that to be acknowledged. And also, they break their own rules all the time anyway, so it's a real shame. And I don't think that this is a good fix for that. I think this just complicates the tournament. It's a 48-team tournament already. It's really, really complex. To have it over 6 countries across 2 continents is going to be really muddled, to say the least.
Yeah, a little bit. It was all decided at an extraordinary FIFA Congress.
And they've named that themselves, haven't they?
It makes it sound like an emergency, like when something horrible's happened and they sort of assemble a government and they give themselves a sexy name.
Completely.
But some people have said that the only actual reason that they've done a few centenary games in South America is because that meant that South America would then be unable to bid for 2034, which then meant that Saudi Arabia would essentially, absolutely romp home in their bid for that one. So the whole thing is the whole thing. I know that it's. I mean, we haven't even got on to 2034, which we'll come on to now. But like the whole thing is extraordinarily corrupt, and the difference. And it's not new to say that about FIFA, but I do think what's changed is that. It feels to me that when we were kind of talking about this ourselves, on the show 15 years ago or whatever, it felt like the only real people that properly knew or cared about it were, investigative journalists like Andrew Jennings, who had to put years and years of work into it and really fight hard to get people to care. And so they were at least hiding it, right? And the only reason they got busted last time because a lot of the stuff happened in the US dollars. Then the US authorities started to get involved because some of the stuff was happening in the US, and they are accountable to no one. And the way they're behaving now, it's just like it's openly. They're not even trying. So if you were going to say that who's worse out of Infantino or Blatter, bearing in mind that people were desperate for Blatter to go, I think you have to say Infantino's worse, because when you drill down into the detail, as well as how open it is, it's really quite surprising how brazenly corrupt it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were fairly brazen in Blatter's day, but it is now open to the point of obscenity how corrupt it is. And I think you have to say Infantino is worse. And we'll come on to various things that Amnesty International have said and the kind of farcical nature of the awarding of this bid and all the pageantry that went with it. But I don't think it's unreasonable to say that human beings will die as a direct result of Gianni Infantino's decisions. Like that is surely going to be the case.
That's what Amnesty International have essentially said as well.
Amnesty released a statement saying, based on clear evidence to date, FIFA knows workers will be exploited and even die without fundamental reforms in Saudi Arabia, and yet has chosen to press ahead regardless. It also said that it ignored concerns from LGBT plus supporters. It's another astonishing decision from FIFA, and they are just plumbing further depths.
They're also complete mugs, because they're not the ones with the power here. They just get a pat on the back and a pat on the head that makes them think that they're this really powerful, important global organisation. But they're essentially just being railroaded into this yet more kind of sports washing. And also, same-sex relationships are illegal in Morocco as well. So, there are 2 World Cups there where gay people will be at serious risk if they want to attend.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And I look, in theory, I am mildly sympathetic to the idea that you take big events and you use them to help, open up a country, whatever you want to say. Educate sounds patronising, but you introduce people to different ways, and the whole thing pushes on, and everyone gets a lift. That's clearly not the case here with FIFA. They use that kind of excuse quite a lot as a fig leaf to say we're doing whatever the fuck we want, and they did do a token thing where there was talk that maybe Saudi Arabia will benefit from becoming more progressive from this kind of stuff, but it's just complete bollocks.
We saw from Qatar it doesn't happen, right?
Exactly, and what's really interesting to me is that, and Jonathan Wilson wrote about this in The Guardian. Miguel Delaney, who we have on OTC, has done an amazing job at really banging the drum about this, and his most recent book covers it as well. But the proper interesting sort of detail behind this that is I think really fucking fascinating is that Infantino and FIFA were really struggling to get a TV deal in place for the Club World Cup, right? And what's happening now? Well, Saudi Arabia get the World Cup in 2034, which is what they want for all the reasons you've said. They get the highest score of any bid in history, despite the fact that 11 stadiums and an entire city haven't even been built yet, let alone the infrastructure and all that kind of stuff that needs to happen. Saudi Arabia get their World Cup. In return, it appears the Saudi Public Investment Fund, who have been sports washing all over the world for years now, have put together a $1 billion bid for 10% of the company, DAZN, that have agreed to pay $1 billion to FIFA to stream the rights for the Club World Cup. And all of this is happening in plain sight with very, very, with greatest respect to the journalists involved, very, very easy journalism to unveil it. The whole thing is just a complete cabal, and that's before you even get into the idea of the stuff you were talking about, like human rights abuses, migrant workers dying, LGBT Q plus people being discriminated against, etc., etc. The whole thing absolutely stinks, and it's very, very difficult to see who can bring it to heel, who can give the oversight it needs. And to put in perspective that $1 billion number for the streaming rights for the Club World Cup, I was reading that Fox, who cover a lot of sports in the US, of course, judged it to be worth $10 million for the US rights.
Wow.
Right.
It's extraordinary. I guess the only change can come within FIFA itself, and we've seen that they absolutely do not want that. They are well up for the direction they're going in. The extraordinary FIFA Congress itself was genuinely extraordinary as well. The way these bids were kind of essentially clapped through was also done in this really kind of horrible, corrupt way. Where
it's like
obviously
the Hunger Games, wasn't it?
It was like the Hunger Games.
Big old collection of Zoom windows.
So if you didn't see it, that's kind of how it played out. You got Infantino and a few other people in a venue. You've got lots of screens where people are effectively on Zoom behind. They announced both bids or the success of both bids, which each one of which only had one bidder at the same time, and it was essentially ratified by people clapping rather than voting. So there was no opportunity to express any opposition to one bid separately to another one. It was all it was just complete pageantry, really. And I'm disappointed that the FA didn't do anything. The Norwegian FA were the only FA that I'm aware of to actually kind of raise any sort of protest. I don't think it would cost the FA anything to register displeasure at this, because presumably they're going to still put England forward and they'll qualify.
But they're spineless, man. They're fucking spineless. Listen, they're spineless, wet blankets. The only thing, talking about oversight of FIFA from above is completely pointless, as we've said. The only thing that can happen, Jim, and you touched on it there, is the idea that FAs, powerful FAs,
start
England, Spain, Italy, Germany, whatever, Brazil, start to say, enough is enough. We ain't being involved in this. And
it's the only thing that will work.
Yeah, but I guess that probably involves such a massive sacrifice that they would be doing that on behalf of so many players who would potentially have to miss out on playing in World Cups and all the rest of it, which is a really thorny issue to get into. We should also mention that FIFA sped up the bidding process for this unannounced, giving countries only 3.5 weeks to put together a bid, which meant that Australia just couldn't do it. We can't do that. I mean, it's impossible. And all of a sudden, oh, what a surprise! Saudi Arabia already had their bid ready. The whole thing stinks. It absolutely stinks.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree with you that it's very, very unlikely that national federations are going to go, all right, sorry players, you're going to miss out on this one World Cup. But I think there's a long enough run up at it that I hope there is at least some attempt to get the public on side with that idea, because there's a long way to go. Maybe certain players will be like, all right, we're not doing that one, and you have the time to adjust to that. It's unlikely, but
I'd love to see that, Jim. The problem is, I was listening to the radio yesterday when this was properly announced. The amount of people phoning in to the radio saying, well, we need to sort our own problems out before we start criticising Saudi Arabia.
Usual kind of what about
just
it?
Fucking idiots. Idiots who don't understand the wider context of what's happening. This is not about some kind of idea that white supremacy being exported around the world and our way of life is the only way of life, like it was back in colonial times. It's not about that. It's about the idea that, quote unquote, respecting people's culture does not involve like ignoring people being abused or people's inalienable human rights not being respected or people being beheaded. That kind of shit is not culture. It's bullshit. And so we should call it out whenever we see it. And they should absolutely not, for a million different reasons, corruption, logistics, ability, etc., be able to host a World Cup just because Infantino's in the pocket and quite needs a couple of billion to get himself bailed out, and is using the whole of football, the world's most popular sport, as his plaything. The guy's a fucking moron.
You can take issue with the sort of countries that are getting awarded the actual tournaments, but fundamentally, I think you can, if you genuinely believe that it's okay to have a World Cup in Saudi Arabia, you should be taking umbrage at the fact that the whole process is bent. The reduction in time that bids have to be put together and stuff like that. It's atrocious, and we've all watched United Passions. We've all watched that fucking terrible FIFA PR film. Like, they started something. And it happened very, very quickly. Just saying.
Yeah, but then as Jonathan Wilson was pointing out, 4 years later, Mussolini already got stuck into it anyway. But the idea of setting an example and saying, this could improve this, that, and the other for these groups of people if we let them do this, is completely the wrong way around anyway. I said this before. All FIFA needs to do at one of their millions of conferences where they all get pissed and eat as much food as they can, they just need to sit on the agenda and say, these are the things you need to have in your country to be eligible to bid. A, it needs to be a democracy, fully functioning. B, it needs to have according to whatever body covers this kind of thing, because there's plenty of them out there, it needs to have a level of corruption below this number. It needs to have all these things, and it
don't
gives
say
people
good transport, because that is the UK is out of that.
We never get it anyway. Only when it suits them. UEFA sometimes chuck us one, but they hate us. That's why I think that the FA are so spineless. Because listen, if it were me, I would sit down with them and say, I know you want to try and do the right thing, but those people at FIFA, they fucking hate you. Yeah. And they've hated you for 100 years. So you might as well go down fighting. That's what I'd be saying.
They're probably, I mean, if England hadn't won the World Cup, they probably would be a little bit more toothy about it. They'd probably...
they've got grounds to hate us.
Kind of pedigree. Yeah.
They've got grounds to hate us. I get it, but they do hate us, and it's almost a bit like, are you gonna give up all the secrets before they kill you anyway? No, just tell them fuck you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, speaking of ignoring tactics when they suit them, Manchester United versus Victoria Pleasant, and Rangers versus Spurs, Chelsea versus Astana. They are all taking place tonight in their Europe. Chelsea have made the 8-hour journey to play in Kazakhstan, where the temperature at kickoff looks to be minus 18 degrees. Put the World Cup there. Have a Winter World Cup in minus 18 degrees, for crying out loud. And then they're off to Brentford on Sunday night at 7 p.m. To be fair, they've probably got the planes, they've probably got the private jets, they've probably got the aviation fuel, and they've certainly got the squads to deal with such an adventure.
Let's be absolutely clear.
Let's make it very clear. If you're a pilot listening to this and you're taking them to Astana in Kazakhstan, please do check that you've got enough fuel. In more cost-saving news at Manchester United, Jim Ratcliffe has replaced the staff's £100 Christmas bonuses with a less usable and less lucrative £40 M&S voucher. What are you getting for £40?
He will be getting a visit from 3 ghosts quite soon, I would think.
Right. Yeah.
Eric Ten Hag, Jonathan Woodgate.
What are you buying with a £40 M&S voucher? Would you go for the Christmas turkey, or would you go
Gets
for
you
a
nothing
cake?
these days, is it?
Yeah. Gets you a couple of nice candles.
That's
or if you're at a train station, a couple of nice cans. I would say this is yet more evidence to my theory that just because they're not the Glazers doesn't necessarily mean they're good. And I think that they have been absolutely incapable, despite him being one of the world's richest men, at controlling any kind of PR strategy whatsoever at one of the world's biggest clubs. So what makes you think that they're going to be fine on the pitch as well? Dan Ashworth, as you guys were saying earlier in the week, Dan Ashworth has spent less time at Man United than he did doing his gardening leave to get the job. It's not going that well because the bar has been so low beforehand, though. No one's saying anything about it. And for those of you who are keen Spurs watchers, little last word on this. We're going to do the show tomorrow as well, of course, but just want to get this in there. Spurs are possibly about 180 minutes or so from getting rid of their manager. If they don't do well tonight and they lose away to Southampton, I think it becomes untenable. It should be Levy and some of the infrastructure going, but it probably will be Ange Postecoglou going. So there might be a lot of chat on Monday about that. Just little Morstradamus prediction for you. Not a full prediction, but just putting the tarot cards on the table and saying, what do you think about that?
I think he's got a flexi ticket to back up to Scotland. I reckon he's got it booked.
I'm not predicting, Pete. I'm just breathing on and polishing the magnifying glass on the tarot card, on the Ouija board. On the Ouija board, that's all I'm doing.
Yeah, and writing down time codes of when this was said.